Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacey St. And you know what? I'm so darned excited to be spending some time with you today. Thank you for inviting me into your day. Now, before we jump into this episode, you know it, girl. I'm going to share a quote with you that I recently read, and it says, "Don't ever give up on life. Life can be so beautiful, especially after you've spent a lot of time with it." And those words come to us from the one and only Yoko Ono. Now, in this episode, we are sitting down with Robin Spires. And Robin has a degree in marketing as well as a degree in interior design. And she is walking us through how she has blended both and is creating wild and wacky and super fun ROI-based designs for other short-term rental hosts. So without further ado, let's jump into my conversation with Robin. So today we are joined by Robin Spires, and we are talking everything when it comes to maximizing the return on investment of your design. Robin, thank you so much for being with us.
Well, I really appreciate you having me. Thank you.
So first of all, let's have you start off and share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, I am, of course, Robin Spires. I've been designing for about 20 years. My initial college degree was in marketing, and I worked, started having babies, and then lived in Northern Virginia and realized I could not afford to work. And so I stayed home. However, I was always a work-at-home mom. I always found something. I've been sewing since I was 5. So, anything in my house, from my window treatments to whatever I made. And so have all this moment. Kiddies are going back to school. It's time for me to graduate, back to work. And the internet had happened. So I was at a crossroads. I needed to go back to school to get some serious, computer lit, any kind of knowledge, and then, or be whoever I wanted to be when I grew up. And as I recollected, I had played Barbies in a different way than my friends. I was making vignettes, and I was making sofas out of Cheerios boxes. So all that led here. We fast forward. I had owned a store combined with my design studio, which I really have this love affair with vintage because it's the quality and always can be reimagined in various ways with a lot of the tradespeople that I know. And so COVID happened, it closed my store. And during that time, I'd worked on residential, commercial, retail design. And that was kind of tough, closing that, reestablishing what it was I would do. I had a little bump in the road, life-wise, got a divorce a couple of years ago. And so that was I like these crossroads, these impetus, because I ask myself big questions. I have an 1882 house that is a farmhouse that has a guest cottage, and we moved here 15 years ago. And always had this nudging little idea that I would be a short-term rental owner or host one day. And then that divorce really propelled that, and I just jumped in hook, line, and sinker.
I love that you have taken what could be viewed as a very challenging, traumatic time in your life with a divorce, and you use that to push you into something incredibly rewarding. Mm-hmm. And so talk to us about how that played out. You have this 1882 farmhouse, and you've got this guest cottage on the back end. You've had this nudging or, small voice in your head for years talking about short-term rentals. Talk to us a little bit about how you ultimately decided to take the plunge. And I'm assuming you were your own first design client.
Well, for STRs, my first, yes.
That's what I mean. Yes. Thank you for clarifying. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Although if any short-term rental, Airbnb, anything I've ever been in, if there's, let's tell you right now, all your pictures are straight when I leave. It's a tip I have. I'm at restaurants. So I don't know if that's called designing, but I have a terrible habit and I'm trying to break it. I knew that I wanted it whimsical and over the top and someplace that I would want to stay, that would impress me, that would make me want to talk about it or make me smile or whatever it is that we want our guests to feel something in our space, not just sleep there. And so all the details, and I'm privy to so many different things by virtue of being I've gone to flea markets all over the world. So, I wanted crazy stuff and I want to reimagine it and let's hang a chair from the ceiling. I'll do it. I have no problem doing that. So that fueled it and it came out extra and in the best possible way, interesting and wild and crazy. And so I had this thought is, why are people not doing this in short-term rentals? I didn't see it a lot. It's becoming more prevalent now, but with some really high dollar tickets with them. And that's a tough one. Yeah. So I just thought, I can't own a million Airbnbs, but wouldn't it be fun or short-term rentals to design them and create the dog and pony show that successful short-term rentals have?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And you mentioned, big budgets sometimes being a challenge for folks, for the general real estate investor, pouring $250,000, $300,000 into a backyard could be a little, number one, challenging budget wise, but then it's risky. It is risky. So talk to us a little bit about how you go around budget and establishing a budget for a project that you're working on.
Yeah. The budget, the first thing that I do is when somebody puts a discovery call with me, is I'm going to immediately say, I need to see your link. And it's not just looking at their property, is really, because this may be a client. A lot of people say, why do you, I'll spend a half an hour. That's a free half an hour. That's my research. But I don't want to waste your time and my time. And so I'm going to start it just like I would a project, which is looking at your competitors. What's your competition doing? You can dial in how many bedrooms, how many guests, and look at the outside too. Look at everything. Think about why people come to your location. And if you can kind of create that, as we talk about your guest avatar, who's your guest avatar? Who do you want to stay with you? And so that allows you and sort of pulls you into a place where you can see right away. If everyone has a hot tub and you don't, that now becomes the baseline. That's not an upgrade. It's a baseline. And it's expensive, but you've got to figure out how to float, the cream has to float up. And so doing that is a great way to at least decide what it is you may or may not need to do.
Interesting. You also mention guests needing to feel something when they walk into a property.
Yeah.
From a strategic perspective, I think it's really easy for most people to latch on and agree with that concept. From a tactical perspective, it can be very difficult for folks to go, okay, well, how do I make my guest feel something? Talk to me a little bit about the process that you go through as you are potentially designing a space. How do you create an environment where guests feel something?
Well, first off, you want to start, it's a backward plan. You think, I always go with that guest avatar, which is, who am I marketing to? Why do people come here? Why? And that's, again, there's more research in what I do. It's not, everyone thinks this is a great job and I love my job, but I've had back surgery. It's hard. You lift heavy things. well, when you shouldn't. But starting in that process to say, all right, here's the design I think we have. Okay. And so then I always start with a mood board. You may have some inspiration. I say, get yourself a Pinterest board or whatever it is. But then being able to say, all right, here's the big picture, and then start dialing that in. Then now you have a way, you have your bone, your structure, and then we start putting the leaves, whether it's a tree, the leaves on whatever, we flesh that out. And as you start doing that, it really is about layers, but not clutter. By feeling even comfortable is the first thing that we want them to feel. And sometimes the discomfort can be like, and I know this sounds weird, but like all your art is too low, too wall, whatever. The rooms are painted different colors, but there's not cohesion. You get a feeling that like something's off. You don't think about it, but think about rooms you've gone into. You'll say, this is weird. So you've already, just even if you're having a basic space, is knowing some basic design rules on, hanging your pieces at eye level, not too small or whatever. So once we get past all that, it's then starting to think the little nuances. I tend to be a little cheeky, and that you have to be careful, because what if my guest avatar are families with kids? You can't just pick whatever you want. And so I want to push the envelope. So if it makes, I have a pretty good sense of humor. So if it makes me laugh, and it's funny and cheeky, we get to be hang a chair on the ceiling. And if it makes someone smile, is it quirky? Is it weird? All of the pieces in my guest cottage, I literally spent days and made air dry gumballs and hot pink gumballs, and I drill and put them in paper clips. I mean, this took me days, and then painted them with nail polish. But I put them on every vintage statue. I drilled a hole in, and everything in that cottage is blowing a hot pink bubblegum bubble.
I'll be darned.
And it took my time, but I enjoy it. I had $12 in supplies.
Right.
But everyone says, what's with all the bubbles? and it's so cheeky with the bubbles, if you even look at the review. And it was memorable. So feeling joy that you remember, I don't know. It's just those feelings in some way. They walk away smiling, or is it the best bedding that you've ever had in your life? It's got to be something if you needed more elegant space.
Yes. You raise a really good point. Not only is design an impactful tool when we're trying to attract people to our dog and pony show, as you've mentioned, but getting people to talk about it after they stay is also something that I hadn't really thought about. I just bought a new pair of shoes. Okay. I'm getting ready to go to Disney World. Okay. And it's in the heat of the summertime, so I don't want to walk around in my tennis shoes. So I found the most amazing flip-flops that have this arch support that's like no other arch support I have ever experienced. I have made each one of my family members and friends try on my shoes and tell them how amazing they are. Like, you have to feel this. This is something that is so unique. Well, the same thing can go for our design in our spaces.
Yes.
If we make it big and bold enough, people are going to start talking about it and saying to their friends, you got to stay here. Like, you got to see this. This is so cool.
Right. Exactly. And it is and this is where you get to be crazy and wacky. And why not have 5-foot high cowboy hat table and in the right space, in the right venue. It's so, important just to find that way to stand out. And one of the things that we think of murals is an art or a part of decor, which it is. But even in, I do virtual design as well as full installation. And she's done several. She said, I'm not designing one without you, but it's all e-design. And so, and even in her murals, I'm like, we've got to put your Instagram handle, and a lot of people don't. And this, I want you to take a picture of it, even if it's in there and you didn't intend for it to be in there. Everything that we do, that is where my marketing hat goes on, down to the beach towels that you provide. Please don't provide mismatched towels. Please don't. Please. But it's a marketing opportunity. Everything's a marketing opportunity, even in your design.
What do you feel like are some of the most missed marketing opportunities when it comes to design might be?
Some, I don't know if it's missed. It's like, first of all, getting past the pardon my French, the dime store art. I mean, it is so expensive at this point to get a canvas printed. You can get a big stretched canvas instead of a mural. You can literally get it printed, but having art that is either, and please don't say welcome home sweet home. Please stop the title. I did a whole post on that. Please, I am begging you, get specific to your space, whether it's, I have one of the pictures is I took a black and white of a farmer crossing the road with cows. But in black and white, it was cool and it was art. So let's nothing wrong with going to Target, nothing wrong with going, to Wayfair, but there are unique ways. Are there local artists? Can you strike a deal with them? Could you sell their art there? It is just really so simple, as opposed to, yep, got it at Hobby Lobby. Yep, got it at Michael's. And you see it everywhere. And so I think there are unique, cost-effective ways to change that.
That's so interesting that you say that, because when I first started, and I'll be the first person to say, like, I am not a designer in any stretch of the imagination. And I have designed most of our properties in our portfolio. And it's funny, when I go back to some of my original properties that I worked on, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Mama needed some help with this one, and I didn't realize it. But same thing, like the same little decor piece I had from Hobby Lobby, I've seen in 14 other rentals.
Exactly. And it isn't about a budget buster. I think one of the things, there are people in my field, this is a sort of a newer niche for interior design. I think I've been doing it not knowing, but having gone to school in design specifically in various arenas, I've had several customers who have gone to other highly successful design companies, and the only way they can design is to strip the room and start from scratch. Well, I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, if your stuff is just not going to wear, or it's clearly a size issue or something like that, but utilizing, and we talked before, and I think I'm answering that question now on budget, is, really reassess what can and can't be used. Again, can it? Is it a 6-month-old bed? Unless it's just heinous, we've got to figure out, we can phase it out and say, when this flips, here's your plan B. Because let's keep a budget. Let's do it in phases. And so that is also another way to stay on budget. You understand what's the most critical, and then work your way backward. What's a, must have versus I'd like to have. And, doing those things, I think you're able to, explore and do, a design that you really want to execute, just get there sooner. So, being able to reuse things that is in my wheelhouse. That is my skill set, because I've had real clients who, they may have spent $25,000 on a custom upholstered sofa. They're, they're fancy pants, sure, and they have money, but they're not going to wipe the slate clean.
Right. Talk to us about some of your favorite ways to reimagine things. I know you said, you love vintage, you love kind of shaping something new out of an old piece. Maybe share some of your favorite wins there.
Okay. Well, first off, I'm going to put one little caveat on there, and I have done a lot in terms of design. But when it comes to real seating or sleeping, is don't do vintage, do commercial, unless you know somebody. I mean, I have an upholsterer and I'm going to get it rebuilt. But that's, if we're talking budget friendly, that, unless you have a real skill set. Now, painting a chair is one thing, of course, but anything that somebody's butt sits on or they lay on, it needs to be commercial grade. People don't think about that, and they blow through it. And you may have only spent $300 on this, but by the time you get done, you're going to be spending exactly what you would have spent initially. So phase it in room by room, piece by piece. That being said, I love a can of spray paint. Oh my gosh, I live for it. I just got 2 candy machines that I'm spraying hot pink and putting like disco gems on them. And I can't decide if I'm going to do custom M&Ms or disco balls inside of it. But, it's still a candy machine. But again, spray paint. And, even tables, I've cut the legs off side tables because, cut the legs down, or coffee tables rather. So, I need something lower, or you could put it outside, and it's, changing the height of something, changing the color of something. It's, and then learn to have a hot glue gun. And I have vintage paintings of these gals that I have taken gems and made them look like they had earrings and floral flowers from the 40s, but it was 4 little things, and yet it looks quirky. So let your freak flag fly. That's all I can say.
And the other thing I'll say is that might come very naturally for someone like you, and may not come very naturally for someone like me. And I think that's why it's so important. I'm imagining you would agree, is if this doesn't come naturally for you, partner with someone, collaborate with someone who it is their natural God-given talent.
Yeah. And when it is, and especially if you're coming to an empty space or even an underperforming STR, where it's not like we just need an upgrade. It's, it's critical care. We're hemorrhaging, and we need to kind of figure that out. Even respecting a budget, I would be remiss in saying there are various ways to work with an interior designer. I'm working on writing a master course because I think, it's a doozy, but it's, you could really educate yourself, and that would be cheaper by taking something, a workshop, a class like that, or bite the bullet and get a designer. I said I had somebody, we had really small budgets, and I allotted, here's what I could do. And she opted for 3 big spaces. And then that allowed her to move forward in a way, even just having that mood board and the mood board generation. So even if you don't have all the money in the world, don't be afraid to engage a professional, because this is business. For most of us, it's not a hobby.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a business expense.
Absolutely. Okay. So you've talked about some of your favorite things with reimagining pieces of furniture or art or something like that. Talk to us about the things that you feel like are important to spend money on. So I heard you say commercial grade bedding or beds, mattresses or couches, sofas, things like that. Yeah. What are some other important pieces that you like to invest in from a design perspective?
Well, lighting is jewelry. I think, and especially, it's the least likely to get damaged because it's usually out of the way, unless it's a wall sconce or something like that. But it's really, it can be, sometimes you can get a deal. So, but making sure that you're not getting something wimpy and chintzy and it looks like you went to Lowe's because you went to Lowe's. And we have a worldwide internet out there, and there are ways to push the envelope, go a little bigger than you think you should. If you're not sure of design rules and proportion, Google them. It's, because there are some standard sizes, and it's usually this one that everybody gives, and the standard is more like this. And so understanding, that's important to invest in. I believe your mattress, of course, is huge. And I think it's really one of the most impactful things that we overlook is I literally sleep on the mattress that is in my cottage. I bought it and slept on it first.
Yeah.
So those are important.
I actually have the same mattress in my bedroom as we have in several of our properties. Yeah. Because we would go stay on our properties and my husband and I would be like, this bed is so amazing. Maybe we should get one at our house.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some great ways to find good commercial hospitality grade mattresses. And
so Robin,
that's a big one.
Tell us, will you spill the beans? What are some of your favorite places to shop when it comes to either finding commercial grade products or perhaps finding things that are big and bold and funky and stand out?
Okay. Well, one of the ones, I don't know if I can spill I can, at 20 years, I've got a lot of wholesale accounts. So there's that. Even if you are to go into Wayfair or Amazon or wherever it is that you are trying to find furnishings, toggle, you can on Wayfair commercial grade. If you could scroll down on the search and you want to read the specs and and they'll give you recommendations because they want it in fine print, read the fine print. So that look at the load limit on a chair. If it says 200 pounds, because there are chairs out there that do, you don't want that in your rental. Nobody looks at that. Everyone says they keep breaking. They keep breaking. So that's kind of something that is intuitive, or through 20 years, I figured it out, but that's a huge one. Just really read through the description, not like I like it. Because remember, designing for an STR is not designing for your home. You don't have to like everything. You don't have to like the styles. So letting go of that, now we're looking for the deals. One of the best place, especially for decor or funky stuff, is I'm on Facebook Marketplace a lot. A lot. That I got two double-decker candy machines, as I was saying, for $75. I mean, my son go pick them up for me. I was like, they're going to be good. Oh, God. I sent them on my way. So, and shop at your local flea markets, vintage stores, antique stores. Those are great places to get decor. They're great. And, as far as your dishes and your linens, you want piles on piles on piles, anything that, might need to be replaceable or integrated. I always say, buy retail, but just those unique, interesting pieces, all of the statues that I found to put in my cottage with the little bubblegum bubbles that I made, they were just picked up at Goodwill. Don't be afraid to go there and see if you could. I mean, you might find a scarf that you frame. You just don't know what you can find. Or lamps that you can rewire a lamp. It's very easy to do. And as long as you buy new components, and if you feel comfortable, follow YouTube. I mean, most of my lamps came from there and I sprayed them. So just those places that you might turn your nose up, just make it a habit of cruising through if you need elements or, you feel like you want to do a refresh.
And, what I love about that approach is, to our point a few minutes ago, if you're finding it on Facebook Marketplace or at a flea market, it isn't going to be a situation where someone can see those exact pieces, in every other property.
Exactly. And that makes it more unique, more shareable. People feel excited, fun, whenever they feel in your space.
Right. Now, you've talked about some wacky things like hanging a chair from a ceiling. Tell us about some other wacky things that you have done in your projects over the years.
Well, I currently have, before it was cool, a 10-foot cowboy pool that was shipped from Kansas. I'm big on inflatable hot tubs. If you have to start and get one immediately, that's not a budget buster. Well, I have one that is under a 16-foot, I'm going to call it tripod structure. I mean, I don't want to culturally appropriate, and it's been covered with vintage lace tablecloths and burlap, landscape erosion fabric. Again, utilizing 50 yards of this god-awful stuff to wrap around this structure, but it was to be outside and then, to be able to do that. Right. I have sprayed everything and anything, any color known to man, known to respray and respray. So, or hanging Christmas balls from the ceiling, 200 of them.
Wow.
And just, it can be inexpensive, but changing it and being used in quirky or unusual, expensive ways. Because that's what uniqueness equates, even in our short-term rentals. Uniqueness equates expensive.
So interesting. I'm also curious about, going back to the budget conversation. Again, we see people and influencers online dropping very, very, very large amounts of money in these properties. And a lot of times people will come to me and say, well, I don't have the budget to do that, so I can't get started. I can't get my first property because I need to spend, $700,000 or more. And, I'm the first person to say, hey, listen, I started with little studio condos. I actually still have little studio condos in my portfolio. What about for small spaces? What are some of your favorite maybe tips or hacks for someone with a very small space?
A small space is, color can be a great way. I mean, you could literally color drench it. And if you're unfamiliar with color drench, is because it is unique and it certainly will be memorable. You want to be careful about, you don't want it pitch black, but everything is painted one color. And whether, let's call that maybe mauve or that's dusty kind of, I'm thinking desert cactus, but this really pretty color that wouldn't be too harsh to be in. Everything, the woodwork, the window trim, everything. All of a sudden, this is, I don't even know what I'm walking into. And it piques somebody's interest. So, that's important. And then, of course, with your furnishings, finding as many things as you can that can perform double duty, multiple duties. So space planning then really comes into play. Again, sometimes design is not sexy, but I follow the butt bump principle, and especially in a small space. So if somebody's moving around and I learned that in retail, someone bumps their butt on something because they can't get around, I'm ready, I'm out, I'm done. I feel uncomfortable. I'm like, oh, I knocked into something. I don't want to break anything. Well, that applies in our STRs as well. And we want to make sure that it's got what they need, but not everything in the kitchen sink.
But, pun intended.
Okay.
That's so great. Robin, this is so interesting. I've never heard the concept of color drenching. So you've taught me something new today. I love that. If someone is listening and they're thinking, okay, the concept of hiring a designer sounds intriguing, but how do I know whether this is going to be a good fit for me? What are some key questions you feel like folks should ask a potential designer if they are thinking of hiring them for a project?
Okay. First off, I would ask your designer, what guides your suggestions, not even creatively. Mine is data. I like to go in and not that my job isn't creative. It's just this is business. This is business.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to ask them, how they arrive at that. The big question you want to ask, and I find every which way you can think of is, how do they respect the budget? I worked for a designer years ago once, and she said, I don't care about their budget. It was so profound and impactful. I've been resourceful. I feel grateful for that. I've never had an open-ended budget myself. I don't know how to operate that way. If someone wants to, give me a try. I'll try. But, so do you respect the budget? How quickly is it going to be done? Because, one of the things that I do if I have a full installation is, and I'll tell you right up front, is I'll sleep in your property because it needs to be done. My goal, unless it is huge, we got to get out of there in 5 or 7 days because your listing's off the market and you're not making any money. So you want to ask some questions about timeline and who's going to be performing everything and who's going to be storing everything. And this is all, of course, for full installation. Because all of that timing, again, remember, time is money. So, I talked to somebody, they were like in 3 weeks for their, their redecorating project. And I'm like, that's crazy.
Right.
And I'm a menopausal woman. I can't sleep at night. So, you know what? I have been known to paint walls at 3 a.m. and because I can't sleep. So that timeline, remembering. And so do they respect your budget? How do they start designing? And how long does it usually take for an installation?
Interesting. Super interesting. Robin, this is so helpful. I want to ask you one more question before we go to the lightning round. But if someone is on the fence about, gosh, should I just try to design the space myself or should I hire a designer? Now, I know you're a designer, so I kind of know what your answer will be.
Yeah.
But I'd love for you to walk us through the decision-making process. How should someone arrive to, should I do it myself or should I hire out?
Well, gosh, boy, that's a tough question because I'm always going to say hire out, but be careful who you hire. I think it goes back to that question you said before. Does it make you want to vomit to think about designing a space? And as funny as that sounds, we all know what I'm talking about. Go home. Is every wall beige? Would you ever be willing, even if you're not going to live there, you're going to design for your guest avatar who's going to stay there, and we're designing a getaway, not a home.
Right.
And so if that, I wouldn't know what to do. You'll know if you need to hire it out, because if you are in absolute discomfort and you say, I don't even know where to start, depending on the designer. I even do, and some may do as well. So it's not, pick me, but pick me. Just say, I want to buy 2 hours of your time and come with your questions. And even if your budget is infinitesimal, or get to that person who you love their house. And then, but before, we start buying anything, let's still have a game plan, what it is we're going to buy, because we're not going to just buy things that we like.
Right.
So if the thought of all of these moving parts hasn't scared you away, I think go for it. Give it a try.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that you say that because, again, for many, many years early on was designing my own spaces, and I wouldn't even call it designing. Like I was shopping and furnishing, right? But I will say if your first thought is to, I'm going to start at Home Goods, that might be exactly the reason why.
What is it? Here's your sign. Here's your sign. Yeah, absolutely.
Robin, so good. All right, I want to move to the lightning round, okay? And I'm going to ask you a few questions and ask you to answer with the very first thing that comes to mind.
Oh, this is scary.
It'll be fun.
Scary.
Okay, first question. Where is your favorite place to vacation?
Oh, I love Spain. We go on a girls' trip every year. And last year we went to Malaga, Spain. And I've been a number of times. And yeah, definitely.
Do you love the scenery, the food, the wine? What's your favorite part?
Yes.
All of the above.
Yes. And the vintage shopping. I literally had to buy a suitcase.
That's so fun. That's so fun. I love it. Okay, what's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
I want to go to Australia. I've not been to Australia, and I'd like to go.
Mm-hmm. I have so many friends in Australia. I feel like it's a must. So when you decide to go, let me know.
All right. Well, I have an extra bag.
Okay.
I have an extra piece of luggage.
I'll see if I can fit in there. All right, next question. What's one thing you know now that you wished you knew when you started out in the world of short-term rental design?
You don't have to know everything right now. So don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough. And it doesn't mean that your good enough won't get better, but having absolute perfection, you gotta, even those first few months, that's beta testing. All right. Hearing what your guests say, and it's not like you've got breadcrumbs and cat hair all over your bed, but even then people will say, I keep bumping my knee on that chair or whatever. And right. So, but, in my own way, it's more in a design world, but I think that would apply to everyone as, don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough.
Absolutely. Progress over perfection. It's one of the signs I have in the office. And perfectionism will eat you alive.
Yeah.
Like
it is the thief of joy. Yep. I read it somewhere. It's the thief of joy.
And it's so true. So true. All right. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Always CYA. In design, always CYA. Always assume, really what she told me is always assume everybody's an idiot. And so dumb it down. And no, ugly words intended. Dumb it down. Always assume everybody's an idiot.
That is hilarious. And so when we think about that from a hosting perspective, oftentimes we'll say, well, it was in my check-in instructions. Right. It was in my listing.
Yeah. Sometimes
people don't read, right? And so making sure that we are covering our buns, right? In multiple places, or making sure we're reaching folks with key parts of communication in different touch points.
Right.
I think is so incredibly important.
It is. And not having pride to say, well, I told them, well, the way it doesn't matter what you say, it's how you communicate it. And the true test is, did they receive it the way you intended?
Yes.
And if they don't, then you got to do it twice. You got to do it a different way. We've got to, put it carrier pigeon and we get caught up in but I did it. Okay. Right. They didn't get it. Doesn't matter.
Exactly. So good. All right. Last question. What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
Who am I great? I'm grateful for me. I know that I'm grateful for me.
Answer.
Because this has been an interesting 2 years and my therapist, but like I can say I'm grateful for me and the fact that I'm still hanging in there, striving to do what I love, even though I've had to reinvent 100 times.
Robin, I will tell you, out of years of doing this podcast, no one has ever said that. And I am so grateful for you sharing that. I listened to one of my coaches recently, and the message was, why are we so grateful for everyone else, but we're not grateful for our own creativity, for our own skills, for our own areas of genius? And so in my 90-day momentum maker, which I fill out every day, the first 3 things I fill out are 3 things I'm grateful for. And since I heard that message, I started incorporating, I'm grateful for my resilience. I'm grateful for creativity. I'm grateful for having the ability to pivot, So Robin, I just want to say, I love that you have shared that answer. And
we have to be grateful. Yeah. Well, that's the hard work we dig in as women. And I'll leave this because for me, this is so important. I've found, I know this sounds awful, 2 types of women that if we could distill it all down, and it's lovers and haters. Mm-hmm. And whether it's through nature or nurture, I'm not here to shame anyone, but you either are a cheerleader and, it starts by loving yourself, be your cheerleader, but then cheerlead everybody else, or by virtue of doing nothing, you've chosen. You're a hater in disguise. You're a hater. Let's not tear each other down and build not only ourselves up, but everyone around us. Mm-hmm. It's really important as women, especially.
Amen. And I have found so much joy internally by helping share insights and help others achieve their goals. Sometimes it's just cheerleading. Sometimes it's coaching them. Sometimes it's getting them the resources they need. But at the end of the day, I go to bed at night and I feel amazing because I've helped great.
Yeah. And if you're the reason somebody smiles because, you say, oh my gosh, your eyes look beautiful today, whatever it looks. I started about 5 years ago. I was just trying to be happy. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just try to make somebody else happy. Mm-hmm. And it has to be genuine. But I mean, when you start changing your focus on what's wrong versus what's right, even in our businesses, I'm here to fix what's wrong. So, all those things are temporary. They're fixable. But you got to start, you got to start in there fixing, the woe is me and say, okay, now what can I do?
Mm-hmm. The person in the mirror.
Yeah, absolutely.
Robin, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I loved it.